Joining us now in studio is One America's very own Jennifer Franco. Jen, I almost fell asleep multiple times during that segment, but here we are, day 4 now of the trial.
Awake. Yeah.
I'm doing my best. Everyone at home, come on. So here we are on Friday. We made it through week 1. What are the big takeaways regarding this impeachment process?
So I think you touched on one of the big takeaways a little bit earlier. There's a lot of focus on those 4 to 5 Republican senators that everybody was keeping their eyes on to see if they would potentially be defecting when that vote comes. So after the Democrats make the House makes their argument, which we'll get to in a moment, there's going to be that vote to see whether they want to include new witnesses mid-trial. So a lot of the focus was on Senators Collins, Murkowski, Lamar Alexander, Romney, even Cory Gardner from Colorado. So a lot of these senators that might be considered vulnerable in this upcoming election in November. So we got a little preview, though, of where they stand. Of course, we saw those 11 amendments presented by Chuck Schumer to see about trying to get the Democrats' way on the rules process. And, of course, we saw that none of those were effective. All of them were tabled. Right. And the only defection was Collins on one of those amendments. She ended up voting with the Democrats. The vote was something like 50...
248, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the big takeaways. The other big complaint from Democrats was whether the trial was going to be fair. And what a lot of legal scholars have been saying is that ultimately the Senate voted on the rules. That's the framework. So the fact that they're following this framework makes it by default a fair process. Right. And the Chief Justice, John Roberts, who's been presiding on this, has ultimately been chiding both sides on their rhetoric and behavior, making sure that everyone stays in line. So a lot of people consider that to be, making sure this process stays fair.
Right. Even in the greatest legislative body, there still has to be someone presiding over them saying, like, Stay in line, come on.
Exactly, like kids, drink your milk. Yeah, which is all they're allowed to drink, which is weird. But.
The fact that they can only drink milk and water is still an absurd thing. But I think it's also worth pointing out, too, that people who are maybe on the fence, like Susan Collins, Cory Gardner, as you were saying, there's those senators who are up for re-election, those vulnerable senators up for re-election. But when it comes to Lamar Alexander, he's an individual who's not up for re-election, but he is retiring, and he's a Senate institutionalist. So many people were saying maybe he could make this part of his legacy if he were to kind of go back, but it looks like he is going to fall in line with Mitch McConnell, who also has his own Senate legacy that we want to talk about. But the White House and the GOP, they're getting their defense now. They're going to take the stand on Saturday. They're going to come out with their defense right now. What should we be looking forward when it comes to that?
Yeah, so we've heard over the past 3 days of opening arguments from the Democrats, and now the House, the White House, is going to offer their rebuttal, and they're going to basically be pushing back against the claims by the Democrats, and those 2 charges, again, to remind our viewers, is obstruction of Congress and abuse of power in regards to the president's dealings with Ukraine, withholding that military aid. So we've heard a lot from the president's legal team. Jay Sekulow has been taking to the microphone a lot in these press gaggles, and he basically has been stressing that they want a fair trial and they want a quick trial, which the president has said that he fully supports. And the president's also been watching, undoubtedly, these proceedings. You can always tell that he's been watching when your Twitter notification goes off and there's Donald J. Trump tweeting. So he's been watching. He said he even joked about it a little bit. He was saying, he wouldn't mind going in there, sitting front row and staring the Democrats right in their corrupt faces. So sort of, he's not holding back any punches. So, that's essentially what they're going to be doing, pushing back. They're pushing for a very quick trial, and we could very well see a very quick trial when they do take the stand tomorrow. And it's interesting, Jay Sekulow did say that they're only going to take about 3 hours tomorrow when they start, and they pick back up on Monday. So I think that they're taking the president's criticism of the fact that they get the stand on a Saturday, they're taking that into consideration.
I mean, there's something about President Trump, I guess, where he likes kind of being in the front row when it comes to these kind of contentious issues. Remember that one debate? I believe he brought Bill Clinton's accusers as his guests to the debate. I mean, I guess there's something about having...
That's show business, right?
That is show business. It's also, I guess, the legal process. You got to get accusers in the room, I guess. But so this process, too, I mean, it's kind of one of those movies that we know the ending to, I think. I mean, we kind of know that it doesn't look like Republicans are going to kind of sway one way or the other. They've kind of been in line for the most part, absent by Susan Collins, which is still such a weird thing that she decided on one of those amendments to sway. But anyway, before I let you go, too, what should we be looking next in this process? As you said, it's kind of going to be shorter when it comes to the White House defense, but what else should we be looking for?
Yeah, so the big thing I would say is the timeline. Of course, the process will likely, the latest it could end is February 2nd, which I believe is a Sunday. And then the 3rd is the Iowa caucuses, and then the 4th is State of the Union address. So a lot of Republican lawmakers are saying that it's going to happen quick, and they're going to make sure it happens quick. We heard from Lindsey Graham basically saying that even though he doesn't think, Joe Biden is corrupt, he has been talking a lot about the Ukraine issue, and he basically has said, we want to look at the Ukraine issue and any potential corruption on the Bidens, because the president, has the power to want to look into that, but he wants to do it separately. So we might be seeing some separate investigations get launched after impeachment. We don't know yet.
Yeah. And I'm sure Democrats will continue this investigation, too, after this impeachment. They've already said that they probably won't accept the results of this finding just because they said it wasn't a fair trial. But
right, and likely an acquittal is what we're going to end up seeing based on the fact that we're not seeing a lot of defectors in the Republican Party. So
yes, and we should probably say that, as you were saying, sometime next week. But Jennifer Franco, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.